Bom dia a todos os presentes. Meu nome é Giron Klink, sou professor da Universidade Federal do ABC, atuando no programa de pós-graduação em Planejamento e Gestão do Território, além de membro do Conselho Diretor da Urban Studies Foundation. É com grande satisfação que estou aqui hoje para moderar o evento de lançamento do livro ANPUR 40 Years, New Times, New Challenges in a Diverse Brazil, na presença dos estimados colegas e amigos José Júlio Ferreira Lima, presidente da ANPUR, Raul da Silva Ventura Neto, secretário executivo da ANPUR, Lorraine Kennedy, presidente do Conselho Diretor da Urban Studies Foundation, e Joe Shaw, diretor executivo da Foundation. Antes de darmos início às apresentações da mesa, gostaria de fazer duas observações logísticas. Primeiramente, lamento informar que não teremos tradução simultânea, mas o recurso, como você sabe, o recurso de legendas automáticos do YouTube, com certeza poderão ser úteis. Em segundo lugar, gostaria de destacar o cronograma de lançamento do livro, que além deste mês inicial, inclui mais 2 encontros com a presença de alguns dos autores, que apresentarão seus respectivos capítulos. Esses encontros vão ocorrer nos dias 11 de abril, às 9 horas de manhã, e também 25 de abril, também às 9. Vale destacar que houve uma alteração devido às férias, e o evento previsto inicialmente para o dia 18 foi adiado e, portanto, vai para 25. Antes de passar a palavra aos componentes da mesa, na sequência Lorraine, Joe, José Júlio e Raul, farei uma muito breve contextualização sobre a origem do livro. Optarei por falar em inglês para, inclusive, facilitar a transição para as exposições da Lorraine e Joe, que vão acontecer em inglês. The partnership between the Foundation and ANPUR began in 2020, when ANPUR became more familiar with the Foundation's activities and initiatives, subsequently promoting them within its network. The next step was the organization of a joint special session between ANPUR and the Foundation during the 2022 biannual meeting held online. And finally, the ANPUR meeting in 2023 strengthened the partnership, featuring a joint special session, a roundtable, all focused on urban studies topics from Latin America, but particularly the initiative to publish a book compiling a selection of the papers presented at the event. With this brief introduction, and before passing the floor to Lorraine, I would like to express my gratitude to Camila Datoviano and Pedro Amaral, ANPUR's presidency from 21 to 23, for their initial idea for this joint book publication. I would also like to thank, of course, José Júlio and Raul for filling in this idea and coordinating the project's implementation from start to finish. To Lorraine for her steadfast support right from the beginning, and last but not least, of course, to Mr. Joe Shaw for his continuous dedication to this project, from suggesting improvements to the initial draft proposal, securing its approval by the board, to overseeing the details of the book's release as open access under Creative Commons license, and much more. So thank you, Joe. And after this short introduction, I would like to pass on the floor to Lorraine Kennedy. Please, Lorraine.
Thank you very much, Haroon. I'm pleased and honored to open this event, to launch this edited volume. I'm hearing a bit of an echo. Are you also? Yes. Okay. Well, let me try to. Does that help? Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm pleased and honored to open this event, to launch this edited volume celebrating 40 years of research and teaching in urban studies and in urban and regional planning in Brazil. I extend my very warm congratulations to the editor, José Júlio Ferreira Lima, and Raul da Silva Ventura Neto, who are, of course, here with us today. I also salute the many contributors to the book who were selected to participate on the basis of their presentations at the ANPUR conference held in Belém in 2023. Lastly, a thank you to the translators and to the book designer, Paula de Oliveira. A bold red cover like this was a very nice choice. Let me say on behalf of the Urban Studies Foundation that we are proud and happy to publish this book, the first ever book publication. This project reflects the commitment of the USF to promote global engagement by empowering voices and perspectives in urban scholarship from across the world. This book makes available to a much wider readership an English translation of 14 chapters covering a very broad range of topics, thereby giving just a taste of the kind of research that's being produced today in Brazil. And it is being made available absolutely free of charge via non-commercial open access on both the USF and the ANPUR websites. As we are all aware, language remains a barrier to a truly global dialogue in urban studies and to the exchange of ideas and experiences that can strengthen urban scholarship. Being based in France, I'm keenly aware of this obstacle and just how much very excellent research is never included in what we call, global debates. I think many of you would agree that there remains to be much work done and reflection on this in this area. But today, we take pride in this book publication. It strikes me as fitting that Brazil should take the leadership role in this endeavor. In the Global South, Brazil stands out for its long-established academic and professional tradition in urban research and in urban and regional planning and in teaching. The 40-year anniversary of the ANPUR Association is testimony to this institutional grounding. And as is well known, Brazil also hosts a number of highly regarded and highly ranked scientific journals. As an international organization dedicated to urban studies, the USF observes the place that Brazil occupies on the world stage through the number and the quality of the applications that we receive from Brazil. And I want to shout out thank you to ANPUR for helping to make the USF a more well-known organization in Brazil. And among awardees, USF awardees, also Brazil is consistently well represented. And these awardees go on to become valued USF alumni, helping us to build a global urban studies community. As a final remark, I'd like to just say how impressive the book is in its scope, both thematic and geographical. Also, although the focus is on contemporary issues and challenges, there is also a historical depth in many of the chapters which provide rich context and help us to appreciate the material in a historical perspective. I'll leave the discussion of the book's contents to the editors and to the chapter authors who will take part in subsequent events to launch the book on April 11th and April 25th. Let me conclude by reiterating my warm congratulations to the editors and the contributors and my delight at the success of this partnership venture between the USF and ANPUR, for which I wish to express my sincere gratitude to Jeroen Klink, my fellow trustee at USF. I look forward to continued collaboration with ANPUR going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. And without further delay, I would like to pass the floor to Joe Shaw. Please, Joe.
Thank you, Jeroen. Can everybody hear me okay? Yep. Good stuff. So briefly, I'm Joe Shaw, the Managing Director of the Urban Studies Foundation. So I'm involved in the day-to-day operations and running of the foundation, as well as overseeing and defining its strategic direction, along with the Board of Trustees, including Jerome and Lorraine and others. I'll start by reiterating Lorraine's thanks to everybody involved in the book, particularly Jerome, Raul, Jose, to Annie also for sorting out the communications, and all the others involved in the book, not least, of course, the contributors and the designer as well for their great work. As Lorraine said, we're very excited about this publication because it's technically the first publication the USF has had its name behind. So for us, it's quite an exciting prospect in that respect. We also have another publication on the way, which is an internal production. So please watch this space for more. Today, I'm just going to say a little bit about the Urban Studies Foundation, its history, a little bit about its grant-making program, and some illustrative maps and stats to explain the USF's activities in recent years, so that you can see the sort of trajectory of our grants and grant-making program more widely. I'm just going to present and share my screen. If you just bear with me 1 second whilst I switch. There we go. Hopefully that should have made my little presentation slide appear. Thank you to Annie. So if we are to begin thinking about the history of the Urban Studies Foundation, for those of you who are not aware, we essentially emerged from the Urban Studies Journal, which was founded in the 60s and run largely out of the University of Glasgow during that period in what we was almost another world, if you will, of academic publishing at the time. The journal was very successful and ran internationally for many years. And in the 80s and 90s, the journal, particularly in that period, began to try and reinvest some of its profits into the urban studies community, chiefly via things like visiting fellowships at the University of Glasgow, where the journal is still to this day administratively based, but also some seed corn research funding and other initiatives, which were, all in their own way designed to reinvest the profits of the journal into the urban studies community. Now, around about the middle of the noughties, at the turn of the millennium, the journal sought to sort of professionalize its setup, and as part of trying to protect and preserve those profits for the use of the urban studies community, it established the foundation in 2008. So the foundation is the parent organization of the journal, and the journal's profits are donated up towards the foundation for the purposes of furthering research and education in the field of urban studies. Now, I just wanted to flash up these these statements, because it's important to emphasize this is the legal and sort of aims and objectives of the foundation, and it's important to emphasize the fact that the foundation is very small and it's specifically designed to invest its funds into the areas of academic research and education in the field of urban studies, but we also have components where we invest in knowledge mobilization as well. Now, I'm going to talk very briefly about the types of activities we run in order to fulfill these aims and objectives, and then I'm just going to show you a few slides so that you can see the trajectory of where our grant program is going. So to begin with, the vast majority of our funds are invested through the following grant schemes. For the purposes of the audience today, it's really the top 3 boxes you want to look at on your screen, because those are our sort of flagship public funding schemes. Now, the middle rung is the ways in which we support our grant holders. So that's not open to the public, but it's important to know that when you apply for any of our grants, these are additional ways in which the Urban Studies Foundation seeks to support our grant holders. So I'm just going to run through those top 3 boxes for those present, just to briefly explain the types of activities we run under those headers. The international fellowships are particularly of interest to the audience today, since we aim to support exclusively scholars based in the global south. So they should be nationals of certain countries, but they should also be based and working within the south. And the intent of those fellowships is to provide 3 to 9 month visiting fellowships for scholars to complete publications on research that they've already conducted. So the idea is to take a scholar, to give them the support to travel to another institution under the mentorship of a suitably qualified individual. So that could be a professor in urban studies or somebody who should be linked to the work of the particular fellow. And the idea is to help them complete publications that they may have already started but do not currently have the time or resources to complete. So this could be a couple of journal papers, it could be a part of an edited book, or it could indeed be a solely authored book, a monograph. So the purposes of those is fully funded fellowships for 3 to 9 months, which are generally seen to be a sabbatical from the fellow's existing appointment. The seminar series are more geared towards collectives of scholars who want to come together around a specific research theme or topic. We also tend to envisage both of these grants as grants that probably support early to mid-career researchers the most, which is something that we're very keen to focus on. So in the case of the international fellowships, you need to be within 10 years of finishing your PhD. The seminar series, however, attracts a more mixed constituency of applicants, but we tend to see it as something that supports early career scholars because there's a training component that we will support additional training activities with extra funds if people wish. And the idea is to bring together new networks and collaboration around specific research topics. You can find out more about both of those awards on our website, and I encourage you to write to me if you have any questions about them. The third box on the right, I can only say a limited amount about that because that's something we're trying to launch later in the year. You won't find any information on our website, but I do invite you to go to our website, scroll to the bottom of any page, and put your email in to join the mailing list, because that's where we announce all of the opportunities and funding that we offer. So please sign up to the mailing list if you'd like to know more about this. To tell you a little brief bit about it, it will be a new grant that is for basically beginning primary research. So it's going to seed new research projects, and the theme will be urban urgencies in an era of polycrisis. So that could be any intersecting crises around climate change. It could be climate change and migration, or it could be conflict, public health. And that was that was a grant that we decided to follow on from our highly successful scheme to support projects in pandemics in cities. So I encourage you to look at that further. The only final thing I'll say is that the intent of the grant is to support primary new research programs, but that all applicants must be partnering with an organization of a non-academic constituency. So that could be an NGO, any civil society organization, activist organization, community-based groups, etc. And they must be involved in the conceptualization of the research from the beginning all the way through to the dissemination. So more on that soon. Please join the mailing list if you're interested in that. So those top 3 boxes are the areas that we work in with our public grants, and those are the things that you should pay attention to primarily if you're interested in opportunities with us. We do other projects in the background from time to time, such as this book, but they are usually things that we pursue by invitation only. So moving along, I want to explain a little bit about how we came to this particular grant program, because obviously this didn't just begin on day one in 2008. It's something that we've developed over time. And to do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the progress that the USF has made over the last 10 years or so. And if we can just rewind to that early history within the University of Glasgow, I'd like to begin by saying that the vast majority of our grants were awarded within the University of Glasgow because that was administratively very easy and efficient in the early days. However, around the period of 2013 to 15, the foundation took a very important strategic decision to internationalize its funding. This was not just because we needed to make sure there was equity in our grants, but the board also wanted to explore issues of epistemic justice and continue to strengthen scholarship within and across the global south. So there was a real concerted effort around 2015 to think about how we could expand our grant making program beyond Glasgow, beyond the United Kingdom, beyond Europe, North America, and into all regions of the world. And I want to illustrate the way that the foundation has changed and managed to do this. I'm going to do this very quickly with some maps because I'm aware that I think I have around 5 minutes left. So if you have any questions in follow-up to anything that I'm going to illustrate here, please just drop me a line and I'd be happy to discuss further. So if we're to rewind to 2016, you can see, and what I'm demonstrating here is the amount of funding that the USF has offered all around the world, and the size of these blue dots is the relative amount of funding in our all overall throughout any grants that we had during that period. And I'm going to skip 2 years at a time just to illustrate the way in which the board's strategic decision to redistribute the funding has worked. So if we move back to 2016, the vast majority of the Urban Studies Foundation's grants were based at the University of Glasgow, and we were maintaining postdoctoral fellows, PhD students, senior research fellows, but we also had some activities around the world which were in sort of their early inception. So the international fellowships and the seminar series, we did have activities overseas. But the idea was, how can we redistribute and make sure that much more of our funding is spread around the world? So if I move forward to 2018, you can see that already we had established international postdoc fellows. So we had a number in North America, but we'd also expanded the seminar series program. And we had a number of seminar series that were expanding around the world. So, for example, we had a project between Colombia and India, which was going on at that time. But obviously, this picture is still an uneven picture. So I want to move forward to 2020, by the time of which the legacy funding that we had at Glasgow had dropped all the way down to just 140,000. But the amount of grants that we'd spread around the world had increased. We had further postdoctoral fellows, further international fellows, both of which these programs had expanded significantly. So by this point, we were awarding up to around 10 or 11 international fellowships per year, compared to 5 just a few years before, and then 3 or even 2 prior to that. We also had an expansion of the seminar series to around about £250,000 of funding every 2 years. Now, if we move forward as far as the data that I have today goes, we can see that by 2022, the board's objective of strengthening scholarship within and across the Global South had really significantly come to fruition, as we had a real expansion of the number of fellows and grant holders in the South. We'd also pivoted to a lot more smaller grants that were going to benefit a larger constituency of people. So we'd moved away from some of the larger international fellowships towards smaller grants for the seminar series awards, pandemics and cities, and also other grants in the support for knowledge mobilization or events and so on and so forth, including activities like this book had begun at that point. So what I really want to explain is that the Urban Studies Foundation is on a trajectory of internationalizing its funding, which is something that we've taken very, very seriously as part of our strategic aims and objectives. The last round of the seminar series was a particularly good example of this. 2 projects were held from between teams that also had a presence in Brazil and Latin America. By this point, we had really brought a lot more grants into that region generally. So if I pop back, you can see there's actually a number of dots, a huge amount of which are in Brazil, thanks to promotional efforts in that region. So moving forward, I just want to say a little bit more about the data behind Latin America, and I've just got one more slide to show you. Again, I invite questions, of course. So if we're to look at the international fellowships or the seminar series awards, I've just gathered a little bit of data here from recent calls. So in the case of the international fellowships, Brazil in particular is actually overrepresented, if anything. So we have in the 7 rounds between 2018 and 2024, the international fellowships runs every year at the beginning of the year. We'll be launching a call for that very soon, by the way, so stay tuned. 27% of all applicants were from Brazil during that period. 21% of the fellows awarded grants were from Brazil. So actually, Brazil is really healthily represented in the international fellowships. And we've had a large number of successful grants come through from Brazilian fellows who've contributed to urban studies through the publication of journal papers, edited books, monographs, and more. So we're really happy with Brazil's representation in that grant, and if anything, we'd like to see more Latin American countries join that figure. So the seminar series awards, if we're just to look at 2020 and 2022, because the scheme runs every other year, you can see that around 15% of the events that were proposed were based in Latin America, and that actually jumped. So it was something like 12% in 2020, and it jumped up into the early 20% in 2022. So this is increasing for Latin America. And around 20% of the funded programs were actually held events in Latin America. So that could be where a team is joining forces between Brazil and the UK or something. They will also have a component of events in Brazil. So I just wanted to explain that those two grants are highly relevant to Brazil and Latin America generally. And that the health of representation in both is pretty good, though we would like to see an increasing amount of proposals come through for Latin America. Anyway, I'm going to wrap that up there now, because I could talk all day about our grant programs, and it might be much better to take questions. But just to reiterate, the International Fellowships is launching very soon, probably within the next couple of weeks. Brazilian scholars will be especially interested in that, as you can see from the data that we already have. The seminar series will be running middle of next year, and our new grant urban urgencies will be running towards the end of the year. If you have any questions about any of those grants, please get in touch with me. But I also encourage you to join the mailing list on our website by scrolling down to the bottom. Thank you very much for putting that link up there. So without further ado, I shall hand back to Jeroen, and again, invite any questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joe. Really impressive, the geography of the structural change that has been going on for quite some years now, in terms of making the global South in general more visible, and the knowledge production also from Latin America and Brazil also in particular. These maps are very impressive. So without further delay, I would like to pass the floor to José Júlio, our president from ANPUR. Please, Júlio.
Okay, Jerome, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. Actually, we decided to split our talk about the book. I will start and then Raul will follow me. The idea is to speak a bit about the contents and how the book was organized. I'm going to read some parts because it's going to be easier for my English. Actually, the biannual national conference from which this book came from was organized around 14 different themes, unfolding 778 related papers. These tracks that compose the conferences have been changing over time. It's very important to say that this is the first initiative to publish a book specifically about the track where different scholars present papers. Some years before, other books were published by ANPUR relating to a specific theme or another track that different from these that are more open to the contributions. I will talk a little bit how the compilation covering the different issues approaching during the 2023 conference held in Belém. Over time, there have been some changes as well as permanence of themes according to the state of art of urban and regional planning in Brazil. Brazil's immense territorial breadth and history result in national cultural plurality with very distinct characteristics in its different regions. The fact exerts significant impact on the forms of organization of societies, reverberates in the terminology used by the author with peculiar semantic dimensions and has implications for interpretative and translation processes. These aspects justify the presence in the book of explanatory footnotes and visualization resources that bring the foreign readership closer to the real meanings underlying the lexicon of apparently common use, as well as motivating the use of foreignizations in case in which the English language does not have a corresponding equivalent. One of the main challenges for the translators, to whom I would like to thank here, Silva, Benchimol, and Everton Branco. Resulting from the plurality and multiplicity inherent to Brazilian themes within the scope of urban and regional planning, a wide range of Brazilian current trends are also quoted in the compiled papers, and their conceptions, in like manner, translated for a wider readership. Therefore, and regarding the organization clustering of themes that we try to explain in the foreword of the book, the first group of articles comprise studies examining urban and regional dynamics in Brazil, including public policies, city networks, and metropolitan issues. These works highlight the transformative role of financial instruments in driving urban expansion, particularly in non-metropolitan areas, and call for further research into the social special consequences of such processes. They reveal the complex interplay between real estate, agribusiness, and financial capital in reshaping Brazil's urban and regional landscapes. Additionally, the research underscores the uneven implementation of fiscal austerity across Brazil, noting pragmatic variations in local responses. This first cluster of themes criticize austerity as a counterproductive policy and advocates for more equitable approaches to fiscal governance. In this cluster, I can say that the two first chapters dedicated to real estate investment trusts and land subdivisions bring new frontiers of financialization of agribusiness cities, mainly located in the center region of Brazil. The other paper on this first theme, called Local Responses to Fiscal Austerity in Brazil, is a study on Brazilian state's expenditure between 2014 and 2019. From the second group on, I'll ask my colleague Raul to follow. Once again, the diversity of issues and geographic spots covered by the paper maybe can turn into a difficult task for those not used to the regional division used in Brazil. In order to give international readership a hand, a map of the country can be used and appears at the end of foreword as a tool both to facilitate and expand curiosity for further readings ensuing from ANPUR conferences and scholars engaged on regional and urban research challenges. I'll ask Jerome to pass for Raul to continue, please. Thanks.
Thank you so much, José Júlio. Please, Raul.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's really nice to be here today. So the second group of the chapters of our book encompass the themes related to dwelling, environmental sustainability, and the right to the city, alongside emerging social issues such as historical memory, cultural identity, and social technical innovation, grassroots mobilizations. The studies in the chapters reveal Brazil's amber segregation. It's like the elites enjoy mobility and opportunities, while peripheries rely on localized economies. Disasters like Mariana Dam collapse expose the human and environmental cost of extractive industries. Housing programs as My House, My Life, or in Portuguese, Minha Casa, Minha Vida, prioritize financial logic over social rights, reshaping urban margins, and other chapters talk about the traditional communities such as Quilombo. Quilombo is an African Brazilian territory, and it's one of the notes that Júlio mentioned before that we have to add to the book. And as Quilombo Mesquita priorities sustainability but face threats from urban expansions. The chapters also talked about the mega events in Rio and São Paulo and how these mega events intensifies state violence against vulnerable groups, while insurgent urban movements like artist occupation propose alternatives and defines demand policies reconciling development, social, environmental, and right to the city. The other chapters talked about the outbreak of the coronavirus in Brazil and how the coronavirus led to a call for papers under a specific group of works. These groups reflect recent research of the impacts of the pandemics over Brazilian cities and regions. The articles classifies reference models for managing urban landscapes during and after pandemics, focusing on physical territory, socioeconomic, political, institutional, judicial, legal, and technological approaches. It highlights the insufficiency of current strategies, emphasizing adaptation over privation. The key finds of these articles include the dominance of physical territory and political institutional models, with Brazil emerging as a notable case. The study calls for improved humanized urban governance and in health crisis. And the last group of chapters examines urban and regional transformation focused on gender, ethnicity, resilience, and territorial identities. One of the studies maps 477 collectively owned and self-managed housing initiatives in Latin America, revealing their role in decommodifying housing through legal and financial challenges. These models resist market-driven crises with the Uruguay Mutual Aid Cooperatives, the cooperative of the Federación Uruguaya de Cooperativas de Vivienda por Ayuda Mutua, as a key example of this chapter. Another chapter analyzes how witness and colonial legacies shape urban space, suppressing Black existence through racialized control. Drawing on Fanon and Foucault, it explores special exclusion and the lasting effects of policies like post-abolition repressions, emphasizing IC's impacts on Brazil's racial politics. A third study accesses Brazil's national rural housing program in Quilombo, Ribeirão do Mutuca, showing how standardized housing policy clash with ancestral building knowledge while improving living conditions. The PNHR, this is the Brazil National Rural Housing Program, disrupted cultural practices, underscoring the needs for policies that respect the Quilombola identity. Finally, the fourth article investigates conflicts over urban development rights as in São Paulo, particularly in Faria Lima. Faria Lima is a financial area in São Paulo, debating whether these rights are public or private. It finds that legal frameworks favor privatization, into studies how housing, justice, racial equity, cultural preservation, and urban governance in Latin America. And the last, I'll call Geron to call José Júlio again so he can end this part of our presentation, please.
Thank you so much, Raul, José Júlio. Eu vou falar rapidinho em português. Muito obrigado. Joe and Lorraine. First of all, if there are, I also talked to 20, if there are any questions from both in relation to specific chapters or in relation to the work of the foundation, specific schemes that Joe presented. If not, I would like again I will do this in the 2 languages, right? I would like to stress again these 2 important dates. Mind you, there will be 2 sessions. In a way, meet the authors, right? On the 11th of April, 9 o'clock, and also the 25th of April. Put these dates in your agenda because you will have an opportunity to flesh out the discussion, to detail the discussion with the authors. So, in Português, não esqueçam 2 datas importantes para debater, encontrar os autores e, portanto, o primeiro encontro dia 11 e depois dia 25 mudou de 18 para 25 por causa das férias. And so I would like to close, if everyone agrees, by thanking Lorraine, Joe, José Júlio, Raul, thanking Tuani also for all the work behind the scenes in terms of the dissemination and setting up the logistics. And thank you all of you that are participating, and we're counting on you to contribute with the discussions about this book. Muito obrigado, gente. Grande abraço. Thank you so much. And here's the link for the book.
Thank you so much as well. I would like to say thank you especially to Joe and Lorraine for today. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much, and the Urban Study for the support in our conference and in this book. We are very, very happy to this partnership, and we hope to more events and conference, and then you can come to Brazil in some moments, please, so we can meet personally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.